Have you heard the phrase, buy once, cry once? You know, if you're a Build Show subscriber, I suspect you're a lot like me, where you're willing to pay more, but you want to know what you're getting. And yes, I'll pay more, but it needs to be a better product, more long-lasting, more durable. You know, when I bought this Yeti cooler in 2010, my wife thought I was crazy. Why are you paying double? Just buy an Igloo. It's less than half the price. But I said, no, honey, trust me. This is going to be a much better cooler than all the ones we've had in the past. That's the same mentality on this camper. I've had this Lance for 5 years now, and on this video, I'm going to review some of the things that I've really liked about it, a couple things that have gone wrong, frankly, and I might give you some advice for those who are interested in getting into the RV market. And then let's also talk briefly about what might be next in my future. That being said, today's Build Show, 5 years later on my Lance 2445. Let's get going. All right, so I'm a construction guy. We gotta talk construction, and specifically wall construction first. You know, you see a lot of RVs in the world, they have that corrugation on them. There's a lot of RVs that are frankly made with wood studs and wood walls. This is not. This is an aluminum kind of framing system with this panel on the outside. They call it Azdel. It's basically like a fiberglass composite panel. And then there's actually block foam insulation on here. And I gotta say, 5 years later, this thing has been rock solid. I've literally towed this thing more than 20,000 miles in the country. If you look at my map on the back of this camper, it's been to probably 90% of the states in the US, and it still looks and feels perfect. I've had no water intrusion issues. Super, super solid. I've loved it. Now, when I first bought this, I did a ton of research because, as I said earlier, buy once, cry once. This was about 20% more than most of the competitors in its class, but it was about half the price of the Airstreams, let's say. So when you pay more, you definitely get more. I would say there's a couple other manufacturers now that are doing these types of Azdel panels. I highly recommend that. I would not buy anything that has a wood composite or a wood stud on the side. It's not worth it. 5 years later, I think those are not gonna be in the kind of shape that mine's been in. You know, if I ever rob a bank or enter the witness protection program, this is probably the look I'm gonna use. This is my vacation beard. Next up, let's talk slide outs. You know, I've had this thing 5 years. I've been in it 145 nights, and I think I told you probably over 20,000 miles. The slide out was super reliable until it wasn't. I've had one issue with a slide out. This past December, when I was just finishing a trip, the slide out was going in wonky, and I had to, with all my force, with one of my kids, push it to get it in. I took it to Princess Craft where I bought it. They've been great on service. But they had it for, I don't know, 3-4 months till they could get all the parts and get it working again. It's working great now. That was about a $3,000 repair, but it does make me hesitate slightly on slide outs. You know, it's super handy. It's amazing to have the space inside, but there is something to be said about a camper without a slide out to never have a difficulty. Had that happen mid-trip for me, it would have been a total bummer if I was in Washington State and my slide out stopped working. Now, when I bought this, I mentioned briefly that I was thinking for a short time about getting an Airstream. The Airstreams, if you watch any video about Airstreams, they always bring up there's no slide outs. And I always thought, oh, that's great and all, but you know, I'm fine with a mechanical issue once every 5 years. However, on this trip, there's one thing that really struck me. When this slide out is in, there really is no room to get into the kitchen to do anything. You can't hardly get anything out of the fridge. And on an Airstream, if you pull over on the side of the road, you've got full access to your kitchen with no slide outs. That you can make a sandwich, you can do whatever you want, hang out for 2 hours and get back on the road, take a nap if you wanted to. I literally can't get to the master without sliding this back out. So slide outs are something you have to decide for yourself if they're worth it. I've had only one problem, and it's not that big a deal. Now, the Lance difference though, check out that awning on the top. They've got a carefree awning, so when this thing pops out, that awning gives an extra layer of protection. And I gotta say, all the other campers that were, you know, 10, 20% less, they never seem to have that. In fact, even some of the expensive models don't seem to have it. I'm sure these seals do a good job when it's open, but having that extra layer of protection was a really big deal for me when I bought it. And here we are 5 years later, I've had 0 water issues with this camper. Okay, let's talk fit and finish on this rig. This is a really nice, family-friendly floor plan. I love this spaciousness. This seating area has been amazing. And in terms of fit and finish, I've only got minor complaints. There's a little spot on this table here that kind of the foil facing has started to rip off. And it's pretty similar to what you're seeing here. This appears to be some type of MDF with a, not a melamine coating, but maybe a melamine type coating. I wish this was Corian or something else, but you know what? I'm a builder, I could remodel it and add that. For the price point, it's really hard to beat. I did have an air conditioner go out at year 2.5 or 3. I had a Coleman that died. I replaced it with another Coleman. It worked actually surprisingly well. Just pull it out of the bottom, out of the roof and pop a new one in. It really wasn't bad, but the room in here has been amazing. For a while, I had 4 kids sleeping in here with me. My oldest daughter's out now. This bunk is permanent. This one comes down as a bunk bed, but folds up for some crazy amount of storage back there. And the bathroom is actually surprisingly spacious. I've really liked the bathroom. This shower of anybody in this class is the nicest by far. I'm 6'1". I have a son who's 6'4" now, and I actually fit in here. This is just a storage flap if you want to have some skylight or not. But this has been a fabulous shower. I did replace the curtain, so that's a new piece, but I don't consider that a Lance issue. That's just use. I mean, like I said, I've had 100 and, or maybe I didn't tell you, about 145 nights in this thing over 5 years. So we've definitely gotten our money's worth. The other thing about Lance I really like is the resale value. I'm not planning on selling this, but if I did someday, or if something happened, I can, you know, I can probably recover maybe 55%, 50% of the original value on these. I did briefly think about the Airstreams when I first bought this, but honestly, it was out of my price range. It was double this. As I'm getting older, my kids are potentially going to be out of the house pretty soon. I've got one out of the house now. I've got a son who's about to graduate this coming year. I could see going to a different rig. Lance does make some non-slide out versions that are kind of made for couples. Or if I had the money, I would potentially consider an Airstream. I would really like to see how those are built. I have some concerns about the batt insulation, whereas this has that composite insulation. And speaking of that, you know, I showed you how solid the walls were on the outside. Look how nice these are on the inside. Everything that's on the inside is just command hooks. So, you know, these are the kind that I could pull that strip and take it off in the future. But they've worked really well. So I really don't have anything that I've screwed into the walls per se. But if you just look around for a 5-year-old rig, this is in fabulous shape, and I can tell you that we did not baby it. With 4 kids and 2 adults, this has held up really, really well. Now, one side note, I think I told you that my slide had an issue. My business partner, Tim, is a mechanical engineer, and he came up with what he thinks is a long-term fix to help that not happen again, and that's this right here. What we did was we put a through bolt, a threaded plate right here, and then this bolt is basically just a piece of all thread with a bolt on it. And when we slide the camper back in, we put this wood block on the floor to protect this vinyl flooring, and then we screw that bolt down and raise the slide up just a hair, you know, like ½ inch is all we're looking for. Because I think what's happening over time with slide outs in general is when they slide out, right now it's cantilevered out, if you had 6 people at this table, there's some small amount of bounce happening that probably could warp those aluminum slide plates over time. But even more dangerous, I think, for over time, when that slides back in, and again, you saw how little room there is in here when that thing slid in. Now it's cantilevered in, and as you hit bumps on the road, and we go through some terrible New Mexico roads, you're getting this action. So by having this additional leg to support it, I think that's going to actually help quite a bit. This is something that Tim fabricated and figured out on our own. This is not an available part, but I think you could probably fabricate something like this yourself. I don't know if Lance would factory authorize it, but I'm obviously out of warranty at this point. So if it helps me not have a problem again in 5 years, totally worth it. One more thing before we go. Next up, storage. This thing is a beast and it absolutely destroys a lot of the competitors, especially those big silver tubes going down the road when it comes to storage. I should tell you though, don't put anything heavy back here. Don't be dumb and put your super heavy cooler or something back here. You're gonna notice everything I'm putting in here is pretty lightweight. And the door is dual purpose. It serves as a record of all the places we've gone. Now let's finish up on the storage thought though. There's storage on the slide out, but the other storage piece that I absolutely love and frankly sold me on this Lance was this right here. This has a built-in table that literally Lance gave me. I hope they're still doing this. I love it. And then this has a slide. I keep a lot of stuff in here. Now when I bought it, it didn't have this More Ride slide. It was a less cost model. But if I remember correctly, the new models actually come with these. Oops, my camp stove's hitting. Look how nice that is. I've got back there that you can't see, one of those little smoky Webers. I keep my Blackstone in here and I've got my Camp Chef. This thing is absolutely fantastic. I love it. The storage is amazing on these units. One thing I want to mention about not just this Lance, but all RVs is they can benefit greatly from being stored in the shade. An enclosed garage, fantastic, but most people can't afford that. I've got a rental spot that's really just a shade covering, but not having those UV rays degrade my roof, my caulking, all the exterior seals, all that kind of stuff really makes a big deal, and that's frankly one of the reasons why it looks so good 5 years later. This slot at 100 and some bucks a month, worth every penny. You can see we're totally shaded. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Now by about 4 o'clock, I do get a little sun just on the front here, but the whole rest of the camper, including the roof, totally shady. Now that the UV is protected, let's protect it from theft. This is a Fort Knox lock that I found through the Lockpick Lawyer on YouTube. And this is a really nice lock. A good friend of mine had his RV stolen out of a yard where they were in storage, and it was a normal lock that they'd cut through. So long story short, spend the money on a good lock. Let's end the video here. One of the last things that I really liked about the Lance was the difference between the dry weight and the GVWR, and you should look for this no matter what camper, RV, whatever. The gross vehicle weight rating, that's the maximum amount that this frame is intended to handle. The dry weight is how you get the camper from the manufacturer, let's say. No tools and utensils, no water. Remember, water weighs a lot. This thing holds like 500 pounds of water. And the difference between my dry weight and this GVWR is a little over 2,000 pounds on this camper. That's a really big deal. There's some models out there that are like 1,000, 1,200 pounds. You would really have to pay attention and be light on your supplies to keep it under that. So I really like, especially on this size camper, seeing 1,500 or more when it comes to room between dry weight and gross vehicle weight rating. With that being said, guys, most of my videos, if you're new here, you just Googled this video and you've never seen it before, the Build Show and my Build Show network that I founded a few years ago, we're all about building a better house. We do all kinds of videos about construction. I'd love for you guys to hit that subscribe button below. We've got new content here every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on the Build Show.